Hi, everybody. Welcome to the RaceDay Check-in Timer Certification course. As usual, we have some last-minute people joining us, but we have a full-packed session today, so I'm going to go ahead and get going. As people join us, they can. We'll be sending the recorded session out to everybody, so you'll be able to watch this at your own time if you end up having to miss anything, because we know some people get distracted and so forth. But without further ado, I'm going to begin. If I can. Okay. So your presenters today are myself, Shelley Harris, and I know I've met many of you. I'm looking at all your names in there. And I do the marketing and education for our event day technology. James Harris will be presenting, and he's our Chief Technology Officer for the event day product development team. And then Matt Avery, he is our product manager for event day technology. And many of you have worked with both of these people. And David Drew is our technical customer service expert, that we like to say is our expert, because he is our support person, and it handles a lot of your weekend questions and also throughout the week. So all of us will be presenting different sections, and I'll get into that in a moment. But also, before I move forward, if you have any questions, please feel free to enter them in the questions area of the GoToWebinar control panel, and then one of us will be answering those throughout the session. So please don't hesitate to ask any questions that you may have. I also want to take a moment to welcome Soren Larson. He is our newest member to RunSignup, and he will be working with many of you in the days to come. He is our Senior Technical Account Manager for the RaceDay technology, and I want to give Soren an opportunity to tell a little bit about himself and what he'll be doing at RunSignup.
Thanks, Shelley. Hi, I'm Soren Larson. I may have interacted with a number of you in the past in various capacities. I've been in the events industry since I was 19, so 24, 25 years, both on the track meet side, registration and database management side, and as the Director of Operations for MTech Results. So I've joined the RunSignup team, both as the Senior Technical Account Manager and also on the RaceDay scoring side, providing onboarding and support to y'all as you come on. Nice to meet you.
Great, thank you, Soren. So this is our agenda today. The first part is to giving you a general introduction to the CheckIn app and what we'll be doing. And then Matt Avery will be actually covering the bulk of today's training, and it will be on the CheckIn app from a participant check-in perspective. He'll be covering things a little bit more advanced features, such as using QR codes, label printing, and so forth. And then David will be covering the results kiosk mode and how to add data, participant data. And then James will be covering from a volunteer staff check-in standpoint, and then he'll follow that with troubleshooting, and then I'll close with our kind of our next steps and things to come from our team. Okay, so what is the RaceDay check-in timer certification? Before we begin this section, I want to extend a couple of polls. Now, we're going to do polls throughout the session, and this is a way to engage with you, ask you some questions. If you're not seeing the polls on your screen, it might be because your screen is maximized, so just unmaximize it and you'll be able to see the poll and participate. So I'm going to launch the first poll because it's pressing as to what we'll talk about. Okay. So the question is, select from one of the following. Are you a timer, race director, or both? Okay, great. So it looks like we have only 4% are just the race director. We have 61% are both timer and race director, and 35% are a timer only. So the reason why we ask this question is because we want to make sure that our audience here understands that this session is crafted for timers. It's from a timer's perspective. However, a race director can certainly take advantage of this information, would find it valuable. Just understand that most of it's going to be from, from the timer's perspective, since they would be the ones doing the back end setup. Okay, and then let me close that one. And then I'm going to launch this poll. Oops. Have you previously completed, oops, I think I undid that. Okay. It says that it's closed. I don't know. I guess it accidentally got closed. But the question was if you've completed the certification course before. So unfortunately, we're not going to be able to hear that from you. But we do have a number of people that have completed the course before, and we've invited timers to take the course again because we actually have a lot of new features. So we're glad that you're here. So let me get back to the presentation, and here we go. Okay. Okay. So this is a program, as I mentioned, for timers. And just like with our other certification courses, you will receive a badge on the completion of the program, and you'll have a special RaceDay check-in certified badge. Your status in RunSignup's platform under the timer listing will also be adjusted. You will now have the RaceDay check-in certified badge with your listing. So what is the timer certification program? We provide an overview for those timers that maybe haven't received or gone through any of the certification programs that we offer. We actually have 4 of them. And our strategy here is to empower timers by giving them technology and education, and giving them access to technology that they wouldn't be able to afford on their own, or wouldn't be able to build to the fashion that they need to address the needs of their industry. And then our goal, or one of our ultimate goals, is to incentivize timers to recommend RunSignup's registration, because it takes a lot to build the CheckIn app and all the other technologies that we have to offer, both in development and maintenance. So we're not making any money from those products, but where we're making the revenue is through the registration, and that's what helps us to be able to develop the products. So the ways we do this, and the ways that we're extending the technology and giving that kind of competitive advantage to timers, is by providing them access to advanced integrated RaceDay technology, RaceDay scoring, which is the new replacement for Race Director, the most advanced form of participant tracking with RaceJoy, and the game changer, the check-in app, the RaceDay check-in app, which is what we're covering today. And then we look at ways that we can help you build, revenue through different types of services and different products, and we provide ongoing product and business training. Okay. So we put out a timer survey every year, and for the last 5 years. And one of the questions we ask every year is, what services do you offer beyond timing? And 80% of timers provide services beyond timing. So this is one of the reasons why we have this program, and also our suite of RaceDay technology, is to help timers address many of these different types of services, in addition to others that they may not already be offering. And you'll see that 89% offer registration setup, which is very in line with obviously RunSignup. And you would kind of expect that, and also race directing and so forth. So the RaceDay suite, and I know many of you are familiar with this, And but for those that aren't, this is kind of an overview of the products that we offer from the RaceDay suite. All of these are designed to support the timer's needs so that they can provide a superior experience for their events. So it's from registration, RaceDay registration, bid management, photos, results, scoring, race choice tracking, and today we'll be covering that slice of the pie, the CheckIn app. The real power comes into play is between these technologies is the true seamless integration, and where there's a real-time updates between technologies. When data gets inputted in registration, it then shows up in the check-in app and so on, and with scoring and race joy and results. So we have this call-out box on the top that we highly recommend timers use for races that are using RunSignup, that they use RaceDay scoring just to get that full integration. Now, you can use any scoring solution. It's just going to give you a little bit more access to additional technology, and it's going to be a lot more seamless. So the RaceDay check-in app. This is actually an app for not only participants, but for volunteers. So as I mentioned, I use the term game changer because in our survey that we put out every year, that seems to be the common terminology that timers use and race directors, that it's a game changer. And it's being used for events of all sizes. And it's actually we ask timers every year, what is the most valuable product out of all of our products? What brought you the most value in the last year? And they consistently say that RaceDay check-in app. And as you see that there's 33% of all the races in 2023 use the RaceDay check-in app, and that translates to 9,500 races. And then 39% of participants on RunSignup's platform was checked in through the app. And that translates to 3.7 million participants checked in through the app. So it's very popular, and it's also not just for large events. As you see, we had 5,000 races, had 200 or less participants. So it's very much a valuable product for your smaller events as well. So the RaceDay check-in app helps you to expedite the check-in process for participants and volunteers. And as I mentioned, it dynamically synchronizes with other data points. So you can use the check-in app to assign bib numbers, and then that gets synchronized throughout. And then it also helps you to easily process check-ins and changes, and it provides insights to your race directors, like, what are the peak times that people are checking in, so you know that that's the time that we need to have more volunteers. As I mentioned, it's used across all event types throughout the United States. It is a free tool for RunSignup registration customers, and it's available for Apple and Android phones and tablets. So with that, I am going to hand it off to Matt Avery. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I have one more slide. I'm sorry. So the benefits of the RaceDay check-in app is for timers, race directors, and participants, they vary somewhat. So for timers, they have the automatic updating of data across functions. It's seamless, it provides increased efficiencies. It's one less thing for you to worry about. And it positions you as a valuable resource for your events, because your race directors will feel like it is a game changer. And for your race directors, it's free. It substantially decreases their time at packet pickup, and they can make use of volunteers versus their race staff. As I mentioned, it provides reporting tools for managing resources. It streamlines the changes and swap process, and it makes use of the phones versus requiring new equipment. And then your participants, they have less frustration, there's less congestion, and it simplifies the process, so it makes for happy participants, which is what we all want. Now I'll hand it over to Matt Avery.
Before we do that, Shelley, I went ahead and put that poll in there again for you. So let's go ahead and just ask that question. I'll launch it. So we'd like to know if you previously completed a certification. Again, the material that we're doing today is meant to go much further, a little deeper. And then also, since our last certification, we've added a lot of new things. Like David will be going through all this kiosk stuff, and we're going to be talking about a lot of different kind of new features that have been added since the last one. So we'd like to get an idea of your previous certification, so we know our audience.
Thanks, James. Yeah, it looks
Great.
like we have,
Okay.
yeah, like,
Good.
it looks like 26% or, yep, it's kind of adjusting, but about 75% no and 25% yes. So it's a good thing to know. There is I know, Matt, you wanted to start off with a poll, correct? Or no?
I'll do it in the at a certain point in mind. I'll launch it myself though.
Okay, great.
Yeah. All right. So let's see here. I should be able to take on screen now. Let's see. Screen sharing. Change presenter. Show my screen. Okay, I should be able to see my screen now, and we're going to dig into the participant mode of the RaceDay check-in app, and we're going to get into the details, into the nitty-gritty today. The RaceDay check-in app is an extremely powerful app, has a lot of different features, has a lot of different settings, has a lot of different use cases. You can get really creative with the ways that you use it. But you have to kind of understand all the different settings, what they do, where they are. So today, a lot of the session that I'm going to be going through will be walking you through all of the different settings, where to find them, how they interrelate with each other, and so on. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and just get started now pretty quickly. So I've got a good amount of content to go through today. So feel free to ask any questions. We do have people responding on the back end, but I'll see if I can get to bring up any relevant questions to everyone later on in the session. So let's jump right in. So first off, what is the participant mode used for? It's used where it works with RunSignup's registration platform, allows you to see your live data for all your registrants in your race. This mode is going to pull in any participants that have registered for the race at RunSignup and participants that you have imported. Allows you to mark them as checked in, see giveaway selections, and any custom questions you may have asked. And like Shelly mentioned, this does sync with RunSignup registration platform, giving all athletes the same race and check-in experience, regardless of where they registered. So you can use this regardless of whether or not you actually used RunSignup for registration. You could import everyone and then use it anyways. So now I'll just get into the setup and explanation of features. This is what we're going to cover in my portion today. First, settings in RunSignup. You do have to make sure you enable the check-in app. It's the #1 support question we get. Why isn't my race showing up in the check-in app? It's because you haven't set it up on RunSignup yet. So I'll show you how to do that. I'll show you, what you have to do in the check-in app once you have enabled it in RunSignup, how to locate your race, how to create and edit presets, as well as configurations. And then I'll do a quick walkthrough of some label printer settings and setup of that, how to check in participants, and some QR code recommendations, since this app does rely heavily on using QR codes for scanning. Okay, so first thing, this is like the #1 issue people have. If they are coming to support, they say, hey, my race isn't showing up in the app. I'm looking for it, and it says it's not there. This is what you have to do. Go into that race, go into RaceDay tools, go to RaceDay check-in on the left, or search for RaceDay check-in in the menu search, and click into this mobile app area. Within this area, you'll find this authentication settings. This is basically where you are saying this race should be available for check-in, available to be seen in the check-in app between this time and that time. So it's not saying you can't check in people after this time. It's saying you'll be able to load the race into a check-in app between these times here. So basically, it's determining whether or not it's going to show up in the app. That's all. So when you do this, just make sure that you probably want to enable it today and disable it sometime in the future after the race is over, in case you ever needed to load it up on a new device after the fact for some reason. I usually just set it to the day I'm thinking about it to start, and a few weeks after the race for the end point. Next, you do have to have a password set, because there's potentially sensitive information included in the check-in app data, so you don't want to make it something that someone could easily guess and plug in and get access to all your participants. You probably don't want that. So you can put in something here, just make sure that you remember what it is. You can put a password hint into yourself so that you remember what your password was. I usually make it the password itself. Considering you need backend access to figure out where the password is and what it is, the hint, I mean, it's usually not an issue. So this is, again, the #1 support case we get about the CheckIn app is forgetting to set this up, or the dates were backdated because they renewed the race and didn't update them. So just if you don't see your race in the CheckIn app, go here, make sure the dates are right. Next, you'll want to make sure that you have the app downloaded. So you can find it in the Apple Store and in the Android store. So just go ahead and download it. #1 thing you should do when you load the app for the first time on a device is change the device name. And you'll see this little gear icon in the top right of the race list. This is like the device settings. And what we recommend is to change the device name to something unique. It's important for the way that reports are generated on the back end at RunSignup. So basically it tallies up all of the check-in data for each device you make and shows you a nice graph of it. So depending on how you want your reports to look, you may do things a certain way. You may say, hey, I want David Drew to name his device Dave, and my device is named Matt. Or you might want to have a bunch of people with the same name. So I used to have a packet pickup that ran in 2 locations. I would have everybody in one location name their device Ridgeway, which was the name of the shop we were doing one packet pickup at, and the other was Brighton, which was the name of the other packet pickup I was at. So I could see a breakdown of how many were at Brighton versus Ridgeway stores. So there's a few different ways you could use this feature, but we usually recommend customizing it because the default is just like iOS device 123 or something. It's not very helpful. So I would definitely, when you're doing your initial setup, go in, think about how you want to organize your data, and then name it accordingly. Next, once you got your device installed, you'll want to search for your race. Now, again, if you don't see your race here, double check, go to your settings, make sure that the check-in period is enabled properly, and then come back into the app and try again. If you don't see the race after you made changes in the date period that was available in the check-in settings on RunSignup, you can just pull down on the race list to have it update, and hopefully it'll show up then. Next, on the next step here, just put in the password that you had configured on your race dashboard. If you don't remember, there's a little blue link where it says race dashboard. You can click that and it'll bring you right to that page where hopefully you set your password hint, and it will help you figure out what you entered there. Just a good little tip there. And then you'll start automatically syncing participant data with RunSignup. All the participants will show up right away. You can pull down the participant list to update it. It'll update every 30 seconds anyways, but if you're impatient, you can just pull down on the list and it will go ahead and update for you. Then the next thing you'd be doing probably is taking a look at the menu. If you tap the hamburger menu on the top left, the 3 lines, it'll show you all of these different items on the left, and we'll be talking through each of those now. So we're going to start getting into the nitty-gritty, like I said. So I'm going to go through almost every feature that is available in the CheckIn app, and I'm going to give you why you'd want to take a look at it, why you want to use it, or why you'd want to ignore it completely. So the first thing is this lock race feature. Basically, it allows you to lock down a device so that it's password protected. It will restrict certain settings to be done, and basically will not allow people to change configurations, change modes of the app. There's an option to even make it so that the check-in stats are not available to anyone who doesn't know the password. So if you're worried about people changing the modes, like if you're using it as a results kiosk and you don't want participants poking around in the participant data, you could lock down the race in this way. Next is this quick check-in mode. This is like a unique feature in RaceDay check-in. Most of the things that are done in RaceDay check-in to customize the check-in experience are all done through presets and configurations. This is an outlier. It was an old feature that we had since the very beginning. We kept it around. Basically, it's a really quick way to do check-ins if you're only planning on using the camera to look up a participant and assign a bib to a participant, and just continuously scan a registration code and then scan a bib and then scan a reg code and scan a bib. It's very stripped down, very basic, but it's very fast and works well for situations where you want to be completely hands-free. We've had people use this mode in harsh winter conditions where they're wearing big gloves and they can't interact with the phone at all, and all they're doing is scan, 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 and it works pretty well for that. Next is the check-in stats. So you'll see a little preview on the right here of what that might look like. It's just gives you something to look at as you're going through check-in, allows you to see what percentage of people have been checked in. This is across all devices on this race, and it'll show you a breakdown of each of the events as well. Next, the next thing is queued edits, and we'll talk about queued edits a little bit later, but basically what they are changes on this device that have not been sent to RunSignup yet. So the way RaceDay Check-in works is it's an offline capable app, which means that if you lose internet connection, which is something that happens on race sites, we all know, it will queue up the data into a list, and it'll say, okay, I've got these 5 changes I need to make. And then once it gets internet connection again, it'll start processing those changes and picking them off one by one. So what happens sometimes is you lose internet connection and all these changes are pending. They're pending sync items and they're just waiting to go up to RunSignup. So we'll talk about it a little more in the troubleshooting sections about how to manage issues where your queued edits list is not going up to RunSignup for whatever reason. But if you wanted to check in and see what's going on, if your device isn't syncing, you can look at all of the items that have not yet been sent to RunSignup right in here. Next is this force refresh button. What this is useful for is it's a way to update the race definitions. So this is not necessarily a setting to update the participant data. To update participant data, all you need to do is look at the participant list and pull down. That will force the participants to update. What force refresh does is it actually says, I know that some changes have been made to the structure of this race. So maybe a new event was added, maybe some new custom questions were added. It wasn't new participants were added. It was like a whole new setting or a whole new event or a whole new custom question was added. So the structure itself has been updated. We don't update that periodically. So if you know that something like that did happen, a new corral was added or a new event was added, you'll want to do the force refresh. But that would be the only time you really would have to. This is not going to help you if you're having participant sync problems necessarily. Next, we're going to talk through volunteer check-in. So this is just how you switch the main mode of the application between checking in participants for your event and checking in volunteers. So your people who are helping you out put on your event. James is going to go through that in detail. Next, quick change configuration. This allows the user of the app to change between configurations of the app. So you may have 5 or 6 different configurations. I'm going to go through what that means in a bit, but basically they're like modes of the app. You may have one for your, there's 100 different ways you could set it up, but you might have one that's your t-shirt station. You might have one that's your bib check-in station, or you might have one just for 5K people and one for your 10K people, and so on and so forth. But this is where you would go in and say, okay, I'm going to change my configuration for this device. Next, get support. This sends us a help ticket to info@runsignup.com, monitored 7 days a week. So if you're having issues in the weekend, use this. It'll get right to our support team. They'll get back to you within like 15 minutes. And then back to races is just how you navigate back to a different race. So this is the main menu. We're going to dive into more of the details now. Okay, so before we get into configuring the app, which is mostly going to be about setting up presets and configurations, I'm going to launch my poll just to see how many of you are familiar with setting up presets and configurations with the Check-in app. All right, sounds good. So we got about 68% yes and 33% no. So for some of you, this might be an overview, but I bet that you'll learn something new today anyways. And for those of you who are not familiar with presets configurations, it's really critical to understanding how the app works. So definitely pay attention. If you're not familiar, this is the bulk of the product, is learning and understanding presets and configurations. So now that that's done, let's dive right in. So once you're in a race, oops, you'll see the participant list, and then on the top right, there's a little gear. The gear allows you to access race level settings, including event presets, race configurations, and my device settings. I'm going to talk about what all those mean as we go on today. So basically, presets allow you to customize the CheckIn app experience for a specific event. So that means, when you're checking in a 5K person, you might want the app to work differently, and you might want the data to look differently for that participant compared to a relay event participant, for example. So that's why you will need to understand how presets work. Presets are like event level customizations within a race. Your relay looks different from your 5K when they're in the same race. And then configurations are a grouping of presets for each of your events, as well as customizations for other customizations for usage. So this is basically saying, okay, all my 5K people are going to look this way, and all my relay people are going to look that way if I'm in this configuration. So it's that grouping of presets to events, and along with just race level customizations that we'll talk through. Okay, so let's talk a bit more about presets. Number one, they let you change what data is shown, what can be changed, and the required steps to take while checking participants in. So presets are assigned to events in a configuration, so you can use presets for each event to customize the check-in experience for participants in different events. For example, you might have a triathlon, and you want to show the group team name and require group and team bib assignment, but only for participants who are a part of the relay event in your race. To do this, you would create a preset that is customized to your liking, showing group team name, requiring group team bib assignment, skipping individual bib assignment, and then you would create a configuration that uses that preset for each of your relay events in this race. So this is why it's really important to understand this stuff. It's a little complicated at first glance, but basically it's just saying, hey, I've got this kind of way of the app to work. I want to work a certain way for certain people, and then you assign that experience to the participants in different events within your race, and that's your configuration. So on the right here, I'm just showing you once you've clicked into the settings area, if you tap the little info icon in the event presets panel, it'll just tell you a bit about what presets are, kind of what we're talking about here today. But you can also add a new preset right from there. You can select existing presets as well, but that's how you would go about adding a new preset. We're going to go through more details on adding presets in a bit. First, I'm going to give you an overview of everything, and then we'll dive into specifics. So next, after presets are configurations. That can be thought of as like a custom mode of the app for your check-in users to select. So if I'm a volunteer showing up to a race and I load this race, you tell me the password, it'll tell me this race has 5 different configurations. It'll ask me to select one. And you'll have your bib check-in mode, or you'll have your t-shirt handout station configuration, or you'll have an admin configuration, so on and so forth. There's a lot of different ways you could use this. Like I said before, they're basically where you are assigning your presets to events, along with race-wide customizations like hiding certain events, customizing the way the search field works, whether like the camera to show automatically when you're looking up participants, preventing duplicate bibs, what data is displayed in the participant list, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Users are going to be able to quickly and easily switch between these configurations as needed from the race menu. So basically, your job as a timer is, number one, figuring out what the heck you want to do with all of these settings, and number two, building them out before the race so that your volunteers on site and your staff will be able to quickly and easily understand which configuration they would need to use and want to use, and that it's all set up the way you want it. The next area, yeah.
Real quick, there's a relevant question. Locking password or locking configurations and presets to certain phones, or if you can password protect those.
No, you can't do that. So the only thing you can do is you can lock a device with a password setting. You can't lock configurations. It would be cool, but we don't have that feature. So the next thing is My Device settings. So My Device settings are essentially overrides to configuration settings that just apply to this device. So the way that configurations work and presets work is they can be synced to the cloud. So if I load a configuration that's for volunteers, I may want to make a one-off change, but I don't want that change to go to all the other people who are using the same configuration. You'd want to use a My Device setting. It basically has all of the configuration settings available to you, but they don't overwrite other people who are using the same configuration. So you can think of it that way. It's just basically a device level override. All right, so now we're going to get into the details of setting up presets. Okay, so when you get into the race level settings, like I said before, when you add a preset, what you want to do is just click that little plus button right there, and then you'll be able to add in a new preset. Just name the preset whatever you'd like. Remember, this can be used in one or many events. So think about what presets do. They're customizing the experience for a particular event. So maybe you'll have a preset that's just require waiver signing, or one that's skip bib assignment, or one that's show fundraiser info. Or maybe you want all of those together and you want to call it your 5K preset, or something like that. So just think about that as you're building this out. This is essentially changing the experience for a particular event, or maybe all your events. So in presets, there's a ton of settings. We have them divided into different areas. Each of the panels you can tap to open up, and then it'll show you all of the different settings within it. The first one we're going to come to is check-in steps. This is customizing the experience while checking in a participant. What steps are going to be included in that process? By default, the check-in process is usually just you click check-in, it asks you, hey, what bib do you want to give this person? You put a bib in and you're done, and that's the process. We have a number of other things that the check-in app can do that you may or may not want to include. So you can say in here that I want to require the bib number instead of making it optional, which is the default. If you really want to ensure that you get all of your bibs collected, you would come in here and add a preset that's require for bib instead of optional. Group bib number. This is if you're doing like a relay event and you're assigning the bibs at the team level. Sometimes you assign them at the individual level, but if you need to assign them at the team level itself, you could require group bib assignment. And then you may assign this preset to all of your relay events. Same thing, you can require it, you can skip it, or you can make it optional. Next, you can require waiver signing. This is a cool feature. It shows a step for users to sign any unassigned waivers that they have. I'll talk about this in a second, some more. And next, there's this setting, check-in related registrations. This allows you to pretty easily, at the end of the check-in process, get a list of all of the people who are related to this registration in some way. So we have a couple of different options here. You could show all of the people who are related to this registration through a transaction, meaning I bought tickets for myself and my friend, or I bought registration for myself and my friend, or it could be the same team, so the same social team, group team, relay team, whatever, or the same corporate team, or the same fundraiser team. So what it will do is it'll insert a panel on the confirmation to show you all the people that I'm related to in one way or another. And you can use this to quickly step through the check-in process for everybody on the same team as me. It's a really nice experience. If you haven't played around with it, I recommend enabling it and trying it out sometime. So this is just an example of what that waiver step looks like. So if you're adding this check-in step, you would see the waiver assignment pad come up. You can view the waiver, you can assign it. In this case, there was 2 waivers. We do support multiple waiver signing in the check-in app. in case you need to add a secondary waiver after the registration has already been collected. They would be forced maybe to sign the second one. Or if anybody was imported and didn't sign a waiver, you could just sign it on the site when they show up. And then on the right here, you'll see that we do have a PDF of the image of the actual signature itself on RunSignup in case you need access to that. So if you enabled that related registrations feature, you can use this pretty cool feature we have called CheckIn All. So when you see the list of related people, it will allow you to just click a button and say CheckIn All, and it'll step through each and every single registration that's related to the one you just finished checking in, as long as they have not yet been checked in. So basically it steps through all the people who haven't been checked in yet. It's a really slick feature, especially for teams or fundraisers and so on. It just goes through the check-in steps for each of those. Makes it much easier to manage situations where you have many related registrations together, like a large team where you're prepping a bag of shirts and bibs, or a family that all registered in the same transaction. So this is a really nice feature, makes things super simple. Okay, after check-in steps, the next big feature is information displays. This determines what data is going to show up when I'm looking at a participant in an event that is using this preset. So again, this preset I may use in the 5K only, or I might use it for all my events. But the point is, you may want to customize what data is displayed based on the event of the person you're looking at. So you may have that triathlon where you want to see the USAT information and the corral for your main triathlon events, but you have a 5K run that's also taking place in the same day where you don't want to see that information. So you can customize your preset based on that event and say, hey, I want to show the USAT waiver or the corral for my triathlon events, but I don't care about that for my 5K people. So you'll see here, you can just check boxes. It's pretty straightforward, just showing what data you want to show, fundraising details, payment details, whatever you want. So that's pretty straightforward. Basically, it'll just show that data on the check-in, the view participant screen. So the middle panel I'm showing here, you'll see view participant, and then it'll show like email, phone, whatever data you decided to show. But the next area is information changes. So this is where the app starts to get really powerful. It allows you to say that for this event, I want to allow this, this user to update information about a participant. So maybe you have a configuration that's like a t-shirt swap station, where you want people to be able to change the selection of a t-shirt for participants or something like that. You could come in here in the information changes area and allow them to edit the giveaways, or maybe it's a corral change. Like you have someone set up that is going to be managing the early start. They're going to look up the people and they're going to go in and update their corral assignment. That could be a really nice use case for information changes in the CheckIn app. So number one, what actions can a user take on participants in events using this preset that should read? You might allow them to do uncheck-ins, allow them to do medical check-ins, allow them to change events of participants, clear bibs, so on and so forth. And also what fields should show up in the edit participant info screen after looking up a participant in an event using this preset and then tapping the update registrant info button. So you'll see on the right here, I have a number of different buttons available now because I've enabled all these settings. The update registrant info allows me to go to the next screen where I can actually make changes to their registration information. I could update their name, their age, their gender. You could use this as like a configuration, or within a configuration as like an admin management utility. If you needed to update information on basically as like a super user, you could go ahead and just enable everything here and allow that person to just use this configuration to make serious changes to participant info really easily. Next, we're going to walk through there's just some advanced options at the bottom here that are good to know about. This first setting, prevent duplicate bibs in event. This says that I don't want to allow the app user to assign the same bib number to more than one person within the same event, but allow assigning the same bib to people in 2 different events. So you may have a race that is taking place over like the course of a month, like a weekly trail race series, and you want to say, hey, for week 1, I don't want to give 2 people bib 1, but I do want to give bib 1 to someone else in week 2, right? So in that case, you want to prevent duplicate bibs within an event, but you don't want to say that you want to prevent duplicate bibs across all events. There is a setting to do that, but it's not here. It's in configurations because we're only talking about one singular event in the preset definition. So this is cool if you have that situation where you want to say everybody in the 5K is bibs 1 through 500, the 10K is bibs 1 through 500 too, and you want to allow duplicates across events but not within events. So something to think about. Next, validate bibs. This is a setting that works in conjunction with this bib validation feature on RunSignup. And what that does is basically allows the user at RunSignup to say, for the 5K, the only valid bibs are 1 through 500, and the only valid bibs for the 10K are 1001 through 2000. If that is set up on RunSignup, we know about it in CheckIn app, and we alert the user and say, hey, you can't assign this bib because it doesn't meet the rules that are set up on RunSignup. So if you're saying, I want to assign a 5K runner 1001, it's going to tell you, hey, you can't do that. It is not allowed because the bib validation rules at RunSignup say 5K runners must have bibs 1 through 500. If you want to basically enforce that bib validation, come into advanced options in the preset and check the box validate bibs. And then the user will not be able to do any bib assignments that don't abide by those rules. Next, use group name during check-in. It just shows the RunSignup group team name during the check-in process. Pretty straightforward. And that is all of the settings in the preset itself. Like I said, it's a lot of information here. I'm going to try and, I was trying to go through it pretty slowly, make sure everybody understands what we're dealing with. Again, all of this information is going to be available to you afterwards. So we'll give you the slide deck so you can look through it some more if you want. So next, we're going to talk a little bit about what happens when you save a preset. You're going to be asked a few questions. Basically, you'll be given this little pop-up here after you save, whether you'd like to sync the preset to the cloud. So the way it works is that presets and configurations are available for any devices that import this race. So they'll be able to use them in their own setup. So basically, if you select keep local, that means that the preset customizations that you've made or the preset itself that you've built will only be available on your local device, the device you're holding. That would be useful if you don't want your preset customizations, if you're editing an existing one to apply to other devices using configurations that are also using that preset. So again, just something to think about as you're making changes or edits. Do you want other devices to get updated or not? That's basically it. Sync should be used if you want your preset customizations to apply to other devices using a configuration using this preset. So again, something to think about as you're editing and updating things. Do you really want this stuff to update other devices in use or not? And you may or may not want to, right? You may be setting things up weeks before, and you really do want to have your preset customizations applied to the stuff in the cloud. But if you're on site and you just want to make a quick change for your device only, you probably want to keep local. Okay, so when you finish adding a preset, the app will ask if you'd like to create a new configuration with this preset applied to all events in this race. So this is like a shortcut. A lot of times you find that many times people just want to make a quick change to a preset or add a preset with a single update, and then they just want to use that preset for all of the events in their, and they just want to quickly like load in a preset and configuration. So if you just click create configuration, it will automatically apply this preset you just created to all of the events in your race and then load that configuration for you. So it's a quick and dirty way if you need to make a quick change and just say, hey, I want to show giveaways for everybody. You can just go to your preset, add a preset, check the box to show giveaways, save it, and then click create configuration, and then it will load that configuration with that customization applied to all events in the race. So it's a kind of quick way to get a customization done. If you select don't create, you will need to manually add or edit a configuration and then apply this preset to one or many events in that configuration. And I'll be walking through that process in the next slide here. Okay, so now we understand how to do presets. Let's talk about configurations. So if you did select that create configuration, it's going to create that new config. If you look at the screenshot top right here, you can actually see the currently selected configuration. Right now it's called testing. And if you tap that, that will open up the configuration editor, and you can update which presets are being used for each event within this configuration here. You can also tap Race Configurations panel and be able to open up basically all the different configurations on your race, and you can edit them that way as well. But so over here on the bottom, you'll see that once you open up the event presets, this is where you map your presets to your events. In this case, I've got a 5K and a 10K, and I could change out which preset that I've created I want to use for each. All right, so now let's talk through configurations, setup, and settings overview. Gonna do the same thing. Gonna talk about all the different features and settings and configurations next. So again, accessed via the gear icon in the top right corner of the participant list. Click the plus button in Race Configurations row to add a new configuration, or open up the panel and tap the chevron on the right there to open up that existing configuration to make changes to it, or you can tap the hyperlink under the current config area. So you can tap the test word right there, and it'll bring up the editor for that configuration that's currently being used. Once you have opened up a configuration, the first thing you'd want to do typically is update the event presets. Again, this is going to allow you to customize how the app works when viewing or checking in participants based on the event that they are registered for. Use the drop-down to change the preset used for participants in each event. So again, you may have everybody using the same preset. You may have 5K using one, 10K using another. This is where you make that association. You can use the chevron on the right side here to edit the currently selected preset for this event. Okay, so the next area is the hidden events area. So this is sometimes useful, most of the time not, but it kind of depends on your use case. It might be useful if you have, let's say, a bunch of virtual participants and you don't want to see them in the app at all. You could just say, hey, for this config, I don't care about virtual, I'm going to hide them. You just check the box and say they're hidden. Or maybe you have different check-in stations for different events. You have a 5K station and a 10K station. So that could be useful there. If you do this and you say, I'm going to hide the 5K people, and someone using that configuration scans a 5K person, the app will tell you this person's in a hidden event, and you can go ahead and override and like check them in anyways, but it will tell you like, hey, they're not supposed to show up here right now. So it's just good to know if you do use the hidden events that they will still be available. It's just that they're not meant to be seen in the participant list and so on. Okay, next we're going to get into general options. There's a lot of different settings here. Many of them refer to the way that search works, the way the participant list looks, and how the app is used more generally. So clear search basically says search terms, like when I type in like Matt, they're retained after navigating away from the search by default. So if I type in my last name Avery and then I go and check someone in, it'll still have other Averys. The idea was that maybe you want to check in your whole family together, you could do that way. You can make it clear the search instead of retaining the search by updating this general option here. So if you have this checked, it's going to automatically wipe out the search terms you entered after you complete a check-in. You may or may not want that, depends on your own personal preference, I guess. Again, a lot of these are also my device settings. If a certain user likes to work a certain way, they might want to go in and change their my device settings. Next is timeout on search. This is basically going to automatically reset the search after 5 seconds. So if no results were found after searching. Okay, And then hiding participants and checked in participants. The app will only show participants who have not yet been checked in if enabled. And auto show camera and bib assignment. These are pretty cool. Basically allow you to automatically bring up the camera to assign assign bibs to participants, so they can quickly assign them that way. Next, auto show camera in kiosk mode. This allows you basically in the kiosk mode method, should the camera come up automatically so participants can quickly scan their bib to get to the results. And auto print after review. In the confirmation step of the check-in flow, should the app automatically print out a label. Next is a setting that's related to the other preset setting. You want to prevent duplicate bibs across events. This is saying, I don't care about what event you're in. I don't want to assign bib 1 to anyone twice in this race entirely. Next, prevent check-ins after execute edits. This is the new feature which allows you to basically more easily manage situations where a device has gone down or isn't syncing for some reason, and you want to lock it down so the app is not allowed to make any more changes. In case something goes wrong and you don't realize it, you don't want to lose all of your changes. This is going to make it so that this app, if it's just not working for some reason, isn't going to shut down your whole day. Okay, next, there's a few different data display options. Essentially, they're changing what is shown in the participant list. You can show, there's 3 different columns here, the left, center, and right. You can change all of those between nothing, checked in status, bib number, age, or giveaway. So if you wanted to show the t-shirt size on here, you could do that instead of their age, so on and so forth. There's also a way to show the team name on here. If it's a group team, it'll just be displayed under the participant name if available. Okay, continuing on, these are some updates or basically changes, customizations for the way the search works. Exact match lookup is a speed setting. It's saying basically how quickly should the app automatically bring up a participant once it's matched on them. So if I type in Matt and there's only one Matt in the database, it'll automatically automatically zoom right into me. You may or may not want that. Some people think it works too fast. They think like they're typing something in, they're not done yet, and it finds a match and it brings it up. So you could change this from fast to medium or slow or off if you never want the app to automatically bring up a result. Kind of up to you. It's just good to know this is a setting available to you. Lookup method determines how the participant list looks to a user. Effectively changing this from being a volunteer or staff-facing application to a participant-facing application. So on the top right, I have the standard lookup method. This is what you're probably familiar with. You can see the data of all your participants. But if you're setting up like a result kiosk or something, you probably want to use the kiosk mode, which hides all the participant information, unless you know exactly your name or your bib number, and then it'll show you your personal information. The idea is kiosk mode is more used for participant-facing functions, whereas the standard lookup mode is for staff-facing functions. Pro tip, if you are using the kiosk mode, you can consider using the auto show camera and kiosk mode setting. You could use it then as a walk-up results kiosk or a chip check station, so that as a participant, there could be a tablet facing me with a camera that's just looking for QR codes. And I've got one in my bib, I walk up to it and it shows me my results. It could be a really cool way to set up an on-site result kiosk or a chip check station at the end of your packet pickup. Okay, the next one is the lookup result. That's a setting that determines what screen you land on after you look someone up. So the default is what we're all familiar with, the view participant option. This is the standard like check-in, uncheck-in, look at their information. But you can also change it to update registrant info, so it'll bring you right to that area where you can make changes to someone's registration information. You may want to do this for like a configuration where you're managing your early start participants and you don't want to see the data about the person. All you want to do is go right to the screen where you can update the corral. So you could change this to the update registrant info if you are setting up that kind of use case. And the next two, view results and update medical info, we actually have default configurations built for you. But you can use them in any configuration you'd like. You can use them in for whatever purposes you can think of, but basically it's just for view results, a screen that shows you the results for the user you're looking up. And update medical info allows you to access the medical check-in, check-out feature right away when you tap someone. So basically you can pin together all of these features to build out really custom experiences for your races. And that's basically all of the stuff we're talking about today for all the settings and so on. I know it was a lot. It's really important that you understand this stuff though. So hopefully you all hung on. So before we move on a little bit, were there any questions we need to bring up, or do you want to take a quick break?
There was a lot of questions about barcodes, and again, just appreciate everybody's patience. Just hang in there. We got a really good couple slides about that when we get to the section 5 troubleshooting. And again, I know this is a long session today, 2.5 hours. There is a quiz in order for you to get your certification skill. So again, if you have to bow out, not a problem. Just make sure you come back to the recording, try to finish the material, and then take the quiz that'll be provided so you can get your skill. Not an issue there. I think, again, yeah, if you want to take a little break for 5 minutes, you think, Avery? Is that what you want to do?
10 minutes. Let's do a 10-minute break.
Yeah, sounds good. It's good pause point. So when you come back, we're going to talk a little bit about label printing. I'm not going to go into detail on it as we just had a recent webinar on it, so I will link to that, but I am going to cover it briefly. So we'll be back in, I guess, what do you think, 5-10 minutes?
Yeah, let's do 1:10.
1:10, we'll be back. All right, everybody, it's 1:10. We're going to get back into it. So we're going to be talking now a bit about label printing and wrapping up with a few other discussions around QR codes and more. I'll go ahead and jump back in. I'll turn off my camera for now. Okay, so within the configuration settings, kind of tacking on to the last discussion we were having, the last panel will have an area to enable label printing. So you first have to enable label printing for a configuration in order for a device to be able to print. So it's pretty important that you understand that. Basically, in order to get the label printing to work at all, you've got to be using a configuration that has label printing enabled for it. So you come into label printing area, click enable label printing, and then it'll open up a panel where it'll show you all of the label printing settings that you'll see here. So number one is label size. We support Brother QL printers, QL810s, QL820s as well. Those are the main ones from Brother that we support. We technically can work with other label printers because we just use a standard print service for the operating system, but the ones that we have the label sizes working for are Brother specifically. So there's 3 different kinds of labels we support: the DK1208, DK1201, and the DK2205. You don't have to use labels printer or labels Brother's labels themselves. You can get off the shelf ones. You can order them on Amazon from third-party sellers. Not a problem. They work just fine as long as they're the same size and format as the Brother labels themselves. They'll work in your printers. So what's important to understand is you do have to make sure that you select in the app the correct label size based on the label that's actually loaded into your Brother printer itself. If you have a mismatch, things go wrong. So make sure that you have set the label size here properly, and when you actually go in and do the printing, I think in Android, you have to make sure you select it again in the printer selection. We go through that on the deep dive in printing if you want to learn more about it. But basically, just make sure that you get that label size set correctly. And then all of the other features down here are a way to customize the display of the label itself. You'll see a little preview of what a label would look like if you were to print it. And you can change each of the rows. So the first row in the center, I have name, but you could update it. You could, delete the row by selecting it and deleting it. You could add a row. You could customize the row to be larger or smaller or bold or not. Left justified, right justified, so on and so forth. So you can do a lot of customization for each of the rows. There's 3 rows available to you. So that's where you do that. And then towards the bottom, you'll also see settings around customizing the actual label size and spacing and vertical and horizontal adjustments. So you'll notice that once you've enabled this, there's an area in the print settings for my device settings. Again, this is like, for this particular device, I need to change something about the label printing, because maybe you have a printer that's offset by a little bit. You could, adjust the vertical, you could shift the vertical adjustment up a few pixels or down a few pixels or whatever. Or maybe you want your labels to be just name, but really, 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 really big. You could just maximize the font size for this one device. Just note, these are settings that only apply to this particular device. In addition, you can select a default printer for this device here. So you can say, for this device, I want to make sure the default printer is this particular printer if you have a whole fleet of them, so on and so forth. So you can add and subtract rows from this area as well. And all of those customizations that you make will be previewed in real time in the label designer. So you'll see all the information pop up and shift as you're actually making changes. So in terms of the printers, we do support the QL label printer series from Brother. We recommend the latest QL820 NWB because it does allow you to connect with Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, and it has a screen on it so you can see any error messages if you have something set up incorrectly. Brother is pretty good. They've got a lot of documentation on how to get things working with your Brother printer. Setting up a printer for a mobile device is a little complicated, so highly recommend getting your printer well in advance of the event and then figuring out how to hook up their application to it and test label printing. Because it does take some learning. It's not as straightforward as a desktop printer is, where you just plug and play. You do have to make sure you install the application. There's like a guide that we have that tells you exactly where you need to go to find all this information on the Brother website. But it does take a little bit of trial and error and troubleshooting to get there. So if you do want to get into label printing, definitely recommend checking out this recent video we put out on it. It'll give you all of the tips and tricks. No, I'm not going to watch it right now. Okay, so now we're just going to get into usage. So once you got all of your configurations and presets and so on set up, how do you actually use the app on site? It's pretty straightforward. Depending on what your lookup method is, you're going to either search by name or bib number, or if you're using a kiosk mode, it might automatically load the camera up, and you'll just scan a QR code to bring up the participant. So again, the way that the experience is going to work is totally different depending on how your preset is configured. So by default, you'll just come in and click check-in, and then it will walk you through the check-in steps. Or if you're updating registrant info, it would go to the registrant page. So most people using the CheckIn app are using it for dynamic bib assignment. This is where you will, your database starts with no bib numbers, and you're actually giving people bib numbers as they walk up that race morning. If that's the case, what it will do is it will ask you in the check-in step to assign a bib number to this participant. So you come in, you scan someone, it brings up their info, you click check-in, and then it will ask, hey, what's their bib number? So you can just type in their bib number if you'd like to, or you can alternatively click the little camera icon and it will bring up the camera, and you can scan a QR code on a bib number to assign the bib number you're looking at to this person. Again, if you're using that auto show camera on bib assignment, you wouldn't have to tap it. It would just bring it up instead of showing you the screen at all. So let's talk a little bit about best practices for QR codes. We had a few people talking about this in the questions, and we highly recommend QR codes over barcodes, specifically because the way that Google works with, we use a Google basically package to interpret the data coming from the camera, and it doesn't support certain old barcodes. So you could accidentally get the wrong bib number assigned if you're using this certain kind of format of barcodes. So we highly recommend that you convert over to using QR codes. Number one, because they're faster to be interpreted and they're more accurate. So highly suggest getting QR codes and everything. Any bib manufacturer should be able to do this for you. So it's very straightforward for them. If they're able to do barcodes, they should be able to do QR codes. Okay, so there's two ways you can use QR codes with the CheckIn app. Number one, you're looking up a participant by scanning a QR code that has their RunSignup registration ID embedded into it. All participants get an email that's sent to them with a QR code that has their reg ID in it. This would be, I'm looking at the participant list and I want to look someone up. I would tap that camera icon on the participant list and scan their phone if they have it, their email up, or if they printed it out, maybe you could scan the piece of paper with their reg ID on it. The other thing that you could use QR codes for is to assign a bib number to a participant on the check-in steps area. So you can see on the right here, I've got 2248, and there's a QR code with a finger over it, so it doesn't quickly scan. But basically, you can have QR codes on your bibs with a bib number encoded into it, and then you can assign that bib number to a participant. So those are the two ways you can use QR codes. I highly suggest number one, QR codes for registration IDs, which you probably don't need to worry about because every participant's going to get a confirmation email with it anyways. The more important one is a bib number encoded QR code on the bibs themselves. So the standard flow is ideally you scan a registration QR code to look up a participant. If they don't have their registration form confirmation with them, you can just type in their name and you'll find them eventually. And then you scan a bib number QR code to assign them the bib you're looking at. So again, it can be enabled manually, the camera scanning on the participant list right by clicking the camera icon, or in the assigned bib flow as well. So again, if you wanted to make this more automated, you could use the auto show camera and bib assignment, or auto show camera and kiosk mode settings under configuration settings and general options. Alternatively, we talked about quick check-in mode, which is like that quick and dirty, all I'm going to do is scan reg ID and then scan barcode or the bib code. So you can use that as well if you want. So like I mentioned, RunSignup does include a registration ID QR code in the default registration confirmation emails. We also recommend sending out a pre-race email with instructions for packet pickup that includes a registration ID QR code within it using this reg ID placeholder. So we have a whole guide on this on the RunSignup help desk to learn how to use the new email v2 and embed a QR code component in it. And it's really easy to generate QR codes using the placeholder field here for registration ID, and that will send out emails to all of your participants with their registration ID encoded into it for use for packet pickup. And you could put a label on it and say, hey, scan here for check-in or something. And that usually gets the message across to your participants. Just one update we have recently added to RaceDay check-in is actually, in the past you've had on your bibs, maybe you had the bib encoded into one QR code and then another QR code that was like scan for results. That would be a kiosk link or a results link at RunSignup. So what we did was we noticed that there's a number of URLs that RunSignup creates that end in the bib number. At the very bottom here, you'll see runsignup.com/kiosk/raceid/results/3001. So that's like an example of a result link that is for a particular bib number. So what we did was we changed the app so that we could interpret anything that ends with hashtag a number to be used for both bib scanning as well as a participant could scan it themselves and find their results. So this means that you can print one QR code onto your bibs that is dual purpose. It could be scanned during packet pickup to assign a bib to a participant, and a participant will be able to scan it themselves on their own personal phones to find their results. So these days, everyone's used to scanning a QR code to look up a restaurant menu. So when people see a QR code, they think they can use it themselves. And if they scanned like just a raw bib number, it wouldn't bring them anywhere. So we decided, hey, what if we could use one URL for both? And this is what we landed on. So we highly suggest if you are getting able to get custom URLs put onto your bibs anyways through a QR code, use one URL that there's a number of different result URLs at RunSignup you could use. As long as it ends with hashtag bib number, it'll work for both participant scanning on their own personal phones as well as assigning bibs. So it's really cool because you just have one QR code and people aren't getting confused if they try and scan a bib number with their iPhone. Okay. So next, we're going to talk a little bit about queued edits. I know James is going to talk more about troubleshooting issues, but I want to briefly discuss what this queued edits panel is in the menu. Basically, like I mentioned before, if changes are not syncing on a device for any number of different reasons, the changes will be queued up and we'll try to push when connection is available again. So we make like a list, a queue of changes that are waiting to update. And sometimes some changes will never push because they're invalid. There's like a number of different things that could happen. Maybe you changed a custom question response, and then before the sync happened, someone edited RunSignup to remove that response. They deleted the question or something weird like that. That could be an example of something where a change is trying to occur but was unable to. And there's a number of different things that could happen. But what you'll notice is you'll see this banner show up. They'll say change is not syncing. And you can actually tap it and it'll bring you to the queued edits list. And it'll show you each instance of a change and what data is trying to get changed about that record. So there's a number of ways you could handle it. You could you could export it to just a text file. You can clear them if you've already taken care of the change that needs to happen, or you can retry them if they failed. There would be a retry button at the top if I could do that here. So most of the time, if this happens, you'd want to set, well, if this does happen frequently for you for whatever reason, you may want to just prevent check-ins after execute edits so that participants will get locked down if their devices are trying to make a bunch of changes and their device isn't syncing. And then you probably pass off that device to someone to manage the changes manually. So they'd see up here, they've tried to change their event to a different event, but it's not working for some reason. So you could have that person kind of forced to retry it or export the data or just go in the RunSignup dashboard and manually update the change and then clear the pending sync queue so that the device can sync again. So yeah, you'll see over here, we actually now have this feature to lock it down, but that's where this is useful. And if you're in a situation where you have really bad internet connection or a device that has had issues with syncing in the past, you could enable this setting to make sure you don't lose changes. Okay, and that is all for me. So I think we are gonna move on to David Drew now, unless there are any questions that need to be brought up. All right, so before I sign off, I'm gonna bring it all the way back to the start. We're gonna do a quick poll. What must be done in order for your race to show up in the RaceDay check-in app? All right, who's answering call Matt Avery? All right, looks good. Most people are getting it right. All right, David, you wanna take over?
Yes, sir. Let me make sure I have everything set up correctly with this wonderful program. All right, are we good here? Yes, I think so.
Looks good.
So I'll be covering the results, kiosk, medical kiosk, participant lookup, and changes. So, sorry, I'm having a bit of need to get rid of this questions menu real quick. Sorry about that. All righty. So as Matt covered in the first part, we have two different view modes. We have kiosk mode and we have standard mode. Kiosk mode is best used for participant-facing scenarios. When you'll have multiple people handling the device and they just want to check their information or their results and then move on to the next thing. Typically, you'd want to use something like a tablet with a front-facing camera. We had a question earlier. You can set it to default to camera, but you can't choose which one it shows initially. So you have to flip that camera once, and then it will always go back to that same camera. You don't have to turn it around each time. So during your setup, make sure you have the right camera selected, and you'll be good to go. We also have the standard mode, which is more for volunteers or staff members who will be holding their own device and working through their either the QR codes the participant brings up or searching last names. Those are the two methods you can use to access these 4 different kinds of, or 4 alternate tools. We have results mode, medical mode, change mode, and view mode. So to get to these, once again, we're going to cover some information twice here, and I apologize. You would select the settings button, and then you would choose My Device Settings. Scroll down a bit to the lookup method and lookup results. You can change kiosk mode, standard mode, and then the 4 other choices under lookup results. So you can see here just what it looks like, and it's fairly self-explanatory. And same with the post-scan lookup result. You can choose View Participant, Update Registrant Info, View Result, and Update Medical Info. The View Participant was originally very helpful for medical kiosk before we got that going, but this is good for if you have volunteers on the course. If you have them download the CheckIn app ahead of time, say there's some sort of medical emergency or someone needs to, someone gets lost and you need to know exactly who it is who's lost, you can scan their bib or punch in their bib number and pull up all their information. Typically, when you have this mode set up for volunteers, you wouldn't want to give them much more access besides the specific information they need. So name, event, make sure they're checked in, of course, maybe age, emergency contact information, things like that. That way they can quickly get the information they need and pass it on to whoever needs it, or make a emergency contact for that person who's in need. You could also use it for pre-packet pickup, participant lookup. So recently at the Crescent City Classic, CRISP had timing mats set up at the various exits to the packet pickup so that people could see, they have their information, and that so CRISP could verify that he was actually assigning bib numbers and volunteers weren't making mistakes. So for large events, that can be handy because participants want to know that everything's set up correctly, so they get their bib assigned to them. They could, as they're wandering around the packet pickup, they could check to make sure that, hey, this is actually assigned to me. I would advise you have it a little bit away from the where they're getting their bibs assigned, just so there's some time for it to sync, right? So you don't have people freaking out for no reason. But those are 2 good uses for the participant view. The change info mode is really handy, but it's also somewhat dangerous because it assumes there's no checking going on. So if you have an inventory set up and somebody changes a shirt size in here, the app won't check to make sure there's inventory left. It will just assign it. It will assume that you've given permission for this change to be made. So this change info mode does need to be handed out carefully. You will want to make sure it's a staff member or yourself or a timer or the race director who's handling this, because they can, if you've given them the power to modify all the fields, they can do just about everything. You can see in this GIF that chip number is an option. I'm sure no timer would advise that you have chip number be modifiable on the app. That could lead to some real nasty problems. So, here's roughly what it would look like in kiosk mode. You have to make sure you select update registrant info, and then you'll have these fields that can be changed. This is useful for corrals, updating shirts, a change table. I know for a very long time, every race I would have to hand out change sheets to the race directors and volunteers, and then right before the event I would have to go get this piece of paper that's full of somebody's handwriting that I can't read, and work all those into my scoring data so that everything's up to date. This alleviates all of that. It saves, I would spend my first 15 minutes of any given race doing this almost at a minimum, and this makes it no time at all because it's instantly integrated into my scoring system. like I said, you do need to be careful about who you give this ability to, because they can override any other settings that have been set on RunSignup. See, there's a question about inventory. I believe I answered that though. The best configuration for a t-shirt pickup would probably just be the view if it's not directly with the check-in process. It also does not update the inventory. It's completely separate from the RunSignup system. So you do, like I said, you do need to be careful. Although I don't think there's a huge need to update giveaways, because you can typically, if you're willing to do that, you'll just hand them the proper shirt. The second one is results kiosk. This is really handy to have after the race and can lead to some cool setups, because you have people finish, and then instead of having like receipts printed out for various participants, they can just walk up to a tablet, punch in their number, it'll display, and then 5, 10, 15 seconds later, it'll go back to the original mode, assuming you have that setting enabled. You can make it so it stays permanent, but that can cause confusion for people. You can see in this GIF, there is time left, and it shows how long they have before it disappears. Similar to the update registered info, you go in, you change it to view results, and you can see what it looks like here. There's a couple different ways to do this. Obviously, you can set it up near the finish line and just have a number of tablets set on stands, but you could also have remote results kiosks. And by that, it means that you can set these kiosks up anywhere. Say you have a running store that's affiliated with the race. You can set up a tablet there and people can check results. Although I think, no, sorry about that. That's just one example of a way you could use it, but typically people, there's a person in the call today who this picture is of their race. So, hey, congratulations. The remote results kiosk can be a nice feature though, especially since it lets people look up their results right away and not come find the timer to ask them. We also covered the other day about QR codes to find results quickly. And between those two, people can see what their results are, scan the QR code to take them to the results page, and then they can have it on their phone rather than standing there trying to take a picture of a screen on a sunny day. This is just a full example of the results kiosk. It's fairly simple and straightforward. The medical mode is relatively new. This is a little different than the check-in app because the app actually keeps track of people checking in and checking out. So when you go to the check-in data on RunSignup, you'll see that Addison Terrio, I don't even know how to pronounce that, Addison checked in and out of the medical kiosk. But when they did that and any other data, I believe you can have someone else set up with participant change info where they could add a note as to what happened. Something like that would be helpful. The medical mode would generally only want to be set up for your medical tent. There's no need to let somebody else access this. So it's a fairly specific use case, but it does allow your medical team to get specific information and to keep track of who needed what and how to, and when they were there and when they left. There are the use cases that we just talked about. We've had a few new features come out in the last year for this, and I've covered most of those. We've had the default or return to kiosk mode, which is nice because people don't get confused like, hey, these aren't my results. It saves a little bit of time. The configurations, this is something Matt covered earlier, to auto show cameras in kiosk mode. If you have the single QR code on the bib that Matt was talking about earlier that ends in pound bib number, this is really handy because they can walk up, scan their QR code on their bib, see their results, and then take off. Keeps screens from getting dirtier during days when it's already difficult to see a screen. But But those are the major updates that we've pushed to these kiosk modes outside of medical mode, which is entirely new. Are there any questions, concerns? They're all fairly straightforward, but they're good alternate uses for the check-in app. How do you assign? So that would be done. Let me navigate back to. Actually, I think that would have been on Avery's PowerPoint. But in the presets, you can set the information that needs to be changed. Corral mode can be one of them, or corral can be one of them for the change mode. That's also information you can change, I believe, during the registration check-in process. There would be another button in the middle that says, Avery, what do you remember exactly what it says? Update participant information. Sorry?
Yeah, so can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what you would do, Eva, is in the preset, go to the information changes settings area, and there you can check a box for corral. And then when you do that, when you view a participant, you tap participant, it will show an update registrant info button. If you click that, it'll show you the list of fields that you've made available to update. So if you've made corral updatable, you would see that corral dropdown show there. And then if you wanted to take it one step further, you could change the lookup result to go right to the update registrant info page. So you would bypass the view participant info completely and go right to the update screen.
So typically you wouldn't want to use the change mode if you're updating corrals during packet pickup. The change mode would be more specific to a troubleshooting table where all they're doing is fixing things. Like say somebody put in their email as their last name. I see that far too frequently. They would want to go to this change table, and that volunteer or staff member would have change mode on. Updating corrals is something that is easier to do the way Matt said it.
Yeah, I mean, you could do it kind of as a part of the check-in process. There's no way to actually introduce it as another step in the check-in flow. So you cannot do like assign bib, change corral, sign waiver. You have to do it by tapping the update registrant info button on the view participant screen, or have that special configuration where you're just going right to the update screen.
If you are changing corrals for everybody during the packet pickup process, it might be easier to have it be a two-step process. They get their bib in one place and get their shirt, and then they go get their corral sticker. That would be a little, it would cause some lines though, some backups, and so it's generally preferred to assign corrals ahead of time. But any other questions?
That's all.
Nope. All right. Jay.
Thank you. Avery, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. So first of all, before we get started, lots of great questions today. I really appreciate all the engagement. So hopefully we're going to be able to answer all those questions. I've got some people looking at the Chromebook issue, so thanks for that one. And again, we'll have time also at the end just to, re-ask questions if you have them. So it's really important information that you guys are asking. I do have a section on troubleshooting that hopefully we can kind of get into some more nitty-gritty stuff. Because again, as timers, you guys really run into everything, all the different devices, all the different types of operating systems and things. And so it's really important that, you test things before. And, so we'll talk about a little bit of that as we get into troubleshooting. But before we do that, again, we wanted to talk about the other mode. And this is probably an area where maybe some of you haven't really ventured into yet. So you've been using participant mode, you've been doing check-in, maybe some of the timers really been dabbling with dynamic bib assignment, hopefully. Again, David talked about the fact that this could be done at the very largest of events, but you definitely want to put your guardrails up and make sure that those bib assignments are really getting in. And so we'll be talking about that a little bit more also today. But, the system is set up for a different mode, and that mode is volunteer mode. So if you are using the volunteer platform of RunSignup, we do have a way to help you manage and look and report and see what's happening out there. So as a timer, helping a race director, this might be something you might want to just start talking to them about as you're looking at other services that you can provide for them. things that you can help expand, their usage of the platform. And again, it really is about, you're just a few people and you're managing an event, and everything happens in real time in 3 or 4 hours time. How can you compress that and have the ability to look at different reports and different things on your dashboard and know that, things are going smoothly and I don't have a fire going on in certain parts of my hour, leading into the event. And so that's maybe an area that the volunteer check-in mode could help you. So again, it's all designed to be used as part of the volunteer platform. You will need to start understanding how to set up a volunteer platform. You have to think about things called categories and tasks, and really organizing and thinking about how you want to organize your world. And so there's pre-race things you have to do. There's things that happen on the morning of the race that you need to do. And then there's actually things that may happen, cleaning up and finishing the race. And so thinking and organizing your event around those types of categories, and thinking about the tasks that you need to put into those different categories is something that you would want to think about if you're going to use the RunSignup volunteer platform. And so what the CheckIn app is all about is just giving you a really quick way to organize it around tasks. And so again, we've talked a lot about participant mode, and you've been thinking about these presets, and these presets are like ways to control based upon an event, a 5K, a 10K, or a half marathon. I want to control like what volunteers can do based on event, or I want to change settings based on event. When you think about volunteer mode, you're thinking about how to control the ability to do things based on tasks. And so you may have tasks that deal with registration, check-in, you may have things dealing with medical, and you want to really organize your world around this task. And so again, whether or not you have them actually register on RunSignup through the volunteer dashboard and actually come in and register, or you're managing it through some other system and just importing all that data, you do have a tool that you could have people come in and check in that morning and say, I'm here, I'm supposed to be doing this task, and I've arrived. And so now you have the ability to look at a report and see that, yeah, check-in's going well, I've got 3 people over there, I got my results people, I've got my water station people, and I've really kind of see at a glance that things are going well and people that actually showed up. They said they were going to do it. All right, I have a problem. I have nobody that showed up for this particular task. How am I going to manage that and not have to deal with just a lot of, yelling and screaming and stuff? And you can kind of look at it and maybe manage it a little bit better. So again, with the volunteer mode, it's all about tasks versus events. So think and organize yourself around tasks. You're going to be setting up your configurations. You're going to be setting up what you can do around those tasks. And so again, like this is an event that is coming up on July 4th. Lots of different tasks that go on, things maybe pre-race, things that are dealing around the course, maybe things dealing with the after party. And so you're organizing your world around tasks and organizing your volunteers based on those tasks. And so again, the reports are available based on the tasks. It's called tasks. You can just go to the reports area in the volunteers. There's a section up at the top where you can click on like a task breakdown. And it's just a really quick way to just see by task, how many people have checked in and how we're doing. So there are some limitations. Again, the volunteer platform, in all transparency, has been out there for a while. RunSignup has a lot of things that we work on. We have a lot of development that we have slated to do. And this is probably an area where I think that, some things are going to be probably happening. Membership was a big drive this year, websites, email, to just a lot of things that became higher priority. But the volunteer system is probably something that will be getting some love in the year to come. And so part of that is just giving more access to things like time slots and volunteer waivers and things like that. And some of the stuff, as they kind of work on their stuff, we'll be bringing that stuff into the app. But it is important to know right now in the app, you're not going to see time slots. You're going to see, here's a task, here's the volunteers that are available, and I can check them in based on tasks. But I'm not going to be able to like fine grain, this volunteer is supposed to be here from 8 to 9, and this one's supposed to be 9 to 10, and really being able to manage that. You're not going to see that in the app. You're also not going to have volunteers be able to, they're coming to the site. You really need that waiver. It's part of your liability insurance that you've covered the event with, and you really want to make sure the volunteers have also signed a waiver. You're going to need to manage that outside of the check-in app. Make sure that that's part of your external system. If you're not using RunSignup, sign up. If you're using RunSignup, sign up, then you have the volunteer waivers, and it's all part of the platform. And then at this point, there's not really a way to like add or edit and make new volunteers within the CheckIn app. We could definitely see that would be a nice thing as we grow this area, to really just being able to quickly like have somebody maybe add or edit their information as they're coming to help you with your event. So Avery has spent a lot of time talking about presets and configurations and all that. The good thing to know is that if you're using the volunteer mode, you're a pro, and because you know participant mode, and that's the main thing here. The thing I'll just say again, you'll hear me repeat this a lot. If you just think about the word preset, meaning display, like I'm controlling what I can view, what I can display. And so whether or not I'm looking at a confirmation page, or I'm looking at a participant detail page, or I'm looking at some step in the wizard, if I'm trying to control the fields that are available, those custom questions and stuff, and I'm trying to control what's displayed, think preset. You're going to organize that around event, and in this case, tasks. That's what you're going to see. When you think of the word configuration, just think of the actions. This is where I control like what I can do and what the flow is going to be, and maybe other things that might be across event or across tasks. So if you just keep those words in mind, display versus action, then presets and configuration become very understandable in terms of what you're trying to set up. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time today on doing presets and configurations. Just know it just works the same, whether or not you're in volunteer mode or participant mode. You have the same concepts. In the volunteer area, you're going to have a lot less fields that you can display. So again, all those custom questions that you may have asked a volunteer, you can actually set up a configuration and preset. So again, the preset, I can say, for the medical people, I really need to see this information. Make sure that they've filled out this information. And then maybe for a different volunteer task, I have other information. So you can control and have different display presets based upon the type of tasks they're doing. And then, that's really what you're doing. So again, presets are going to control what's displayed. And in the participant mode, it was based on event. Over here, it's based on the type of task that they're doing. And, so again, just play around with it a little bit, think about how you might want to do that. I would say probably most of the time, you're just going to be displaying the name, the number, just so you can quickly call somebody. You got the app in your phone, you're just trying to find out if the volunteer is going to show up. You can use it instead of you just running around. You got the phone. You can just look up the name and call them, right from your handset. So it's another way that the CheckIn app could be used. So again, configurations control what you can do. And so again, the same thing like we had over in participant mode. But in this area, really, there's not much you can do at this point. So again, as we make this volunteer area become more extensive, and we start talking about editing information, or maybe even adding a volunteer, or maybe changing their time slot, that type of stuff you'll start seeing here, because that's where you're talking about what you can do, and what the flow might be, and how you might want to have a different flow for this particular type of event than another event. And so you'll control that in configurations. But again, just like we said before, understand the concept of local and cloud when you're making these configurations. It's just a way, as has been stated multiple times today, you may need to just be able to have something local that you're just dealing with as a race director, and you don't want volunteers to see that. So just use a local and kind of keep it to your device. And then the other things you want to sync to the cloud, and so that volunteers know how to go and add that and use those things. So again, this is the same concept that you had over on the participant side. You can hide things. And so again, in configurations, in the participant mode, we can hide events. So I don't want to see anything with a half marathon in this particular station. Same thing here. I can just say, this is a check-in only for these types of tasks. Definitely, there's a lot of things that you may have set up on the platform for people to sign up to do volunteers. But when they come to do check-in, you don't want to show all that stuff. So it really filters down what they can see and what the volunteers they see, and just makes the volunteer list a little bit cleaner. So definitely look at being able to turn off a lot of tasks that you might not have ever a need for anybody to ever check in doing. So there are a few kind of settings that are kind of outside just what we call general options. We've talked about this a little bit on the other side, but I just want to kind of remind you about this. Play around with these settings. It kind of it's really a preference. It's really a user preference, what they like. Some people like, the fact that I gotta type a name, and then, like, depending upon how fast I type, it'll actually, show that match. And so it's all based on the match speed. Some people like that to be a little slower than others. And then also another one is, like, if you don't find something, does the screen, like, especially if you set up like a kiosk where people are walking up and typing, maybe it just times out after some amount of time and just kind of resets back to the default search with nothing selected. So that's another setting kind of play around with. And then, some people like leaving the search name up because it really helps you. Like if you're like searching for everybody in a family, or just the name just always sticks. Other people like it just every time they search, it clears. And so those are just general settings that you should think about, whether or not you're in this volunteer mode or participant mode. These are things that you might want to play around with. And again, we only display, in volunteer mode, volunteers. And so it's a very different data. It's whether or not they were registered on the platform or you import. You can definitely import all your volunteers from another system that you're managing it, and get it all in here and have it available in the volunteer check-in. And yeah, again, just we talked about the gear options, how you get the settings. It's just your one quick way to get there. And we talked about local and cloud configurations. And again, you know how to create a preset, name it. There are default presets that are shipped with the product, but most of the time you can kind of just use that if you want to make a new one. It's all pretty straightforward. Okay, and then again, configuration, same thing. We've kind of talked through this before. And then again, just to be able to switch your configuration, there's a couple different ways. We've added a new thing right on the screen there. We can just do it right off the menu. It's just a shortcut. A lot of times when you're just like quickly trying to change configuration, you may need to have like an override mode where you're dealing with some changes. So all your kiosks are set up in standard volunteer mode, and then maybe you just like have a really quick way to go switch over to allow them to do that crowd change or to do that other type change, and only that change is available in that configuration. So something you might want to play around with and understand how you can quickly switch configurations. Okay, so let's get to the fun part, troubleshooting. And this will be hopefully, again, Avery, just on the back end, as I go through this, feel free to stop me if there's any things that are really kind of jumping out in terms of questions on the channel. We want to make sure we take our time at this section and help the timers that deal with so many things in their work. Really quickly, again, kind of belabor this. Just remember this date range thing. Just if you don't see it, first thing to do is jump on the dashboard and just think, oh yeah, I forgot the date. And it's probably just the date thing more than anything else. You just need to make sure that date is set right. And sometimes people inadvertently are turning things on and off. So we see this a lot where somebody sets something up, they make sure it's working, they turn it off because they're not ready for it to be out there yet. And then all of a sudden it comes race morning and you forgot and it's not on. So yeah, definitely a setting to pay attention to. So we've on the password screen on the latest release, there's like a little show thing. The one thing I want to say on the screen, it does say the word password hint, but I can tell you from us that work support every weekend working with events, if you just make the password hint the password, we're going to be able to be 5 seconds faster in helping you and fix stuff and look at stuff. So just put the password in there. Again, nobody can get to this. This is your dashboard. You've got it completely secured. But if you want to get really great support from us and troubleshooting, trying to figure out stuff, just, because in a minute I'll be talking about how we have in-app support, and those tickets come with your event and your URL. And so we can just jump right in there with you and kind of take a look at stuff. So it just helps us to quickly get to things if you make that password the actual password. So again, there's a lot of things that can be done in terms of looking and trying to figure out what's happening. We had a lot of questions today about QDETs. I'm going to get to that in a second. But again, the dashboard does have all the information about how the check-ins are going. if I were running an event, I'd have the screen up. I just want to make sure things are processing. You may not have the ability to put, extra equipment out there to figure out if things are all happening. So your best way to know that things are happening is just having the screen and looking at it and making sure that things are being processed. And your volunteers, again, we changed the software over the years where now we kind of force them to put in an identifier. So hopefully you've done some training or you have some kind of standard SOP, that's a standard operating procedure that you give out your volunteers in terms of how you want them to name their devices. But it's very important that you can quickly see that check-ins are happening for your volunteers and that that, wait a second, I'm not getting anything for this other device, what's going on? And something that you can just quickly monitor and be aware of as you're going through your early hours. So, there are things that, in more advanced sessions that we've done where you can look at this data in retrospect and start thinking about like, okay, did I have enough devices for this size of event? Do I need more devices or not? You can kind of look back and kind of see how you performed and how many check-ins were happening on a given device in a given time period, and you kind of gauge what you need out there. So it's something you might want to look at afterwards. But the real thing here is, I just wanted to kind of talk on the next screen in terms of troubleshooting some of the key actions here. Okay. So, we talked about like, I just need to make sure things are getting checked in. So that's kind of that high level view. But there are these other actions that you can do to just kind of dive into it deeper. And this is when you start running into some issues where you're just not understanding why a particular registration didn't get their bib assignment. And so you're just trying to understand a little bit deeper. And these are the tools that we use. So we hear stories like, okay, I'm missing these bib assignments and maybe like a range or something. And so we can kind of look at these activity logs, we call them activity logs, and see exactly what was happening per the APIs from the app to the backend. Okay. So one of them is that third button down. It's called download bib assignments and check-ins. This is truly an activity log. It's time stamped of every single queued bib assignment that happened and to the registration. And so you may see cases where a bib was assigned to the same registration, so it got put to somebody else, and so that might have been somebody, again, if you're not using camera scan, you're actually having people type in, you can start seeing evidence of like, okay, this didn't help me. They typed in the number wrong, and so we had multiple people with the same bib, and so that means they typed it in wrong or did something. And again, there are settings to prevent that. We'll talk about those in a second. But again, this is truly an activity log that you can see every single transaction that happened to the back end from the app, and it's all going to be tied to the registration, the bib, and the timestamp of when it happened. And we have a similar kind of log for the medical. Again, this is very important if you're doing medical, just see exactly, and you have that kind of audit history of for a given individual, when were they checked in, when were they checked out, when did the status change, and we have that kind of audit log, so track that from that report. And the other thing is just in general, if you just want a quick way to just download, I just want to know how many checked in. I want to look at all the details of the checked in participants. That's that first button, and you can kind of look at all the data en masse. This could be used if for some reason you were needing to do something in like scoring or something where you needed to kind of update and you just needed to get a really quick way of registration ID, bib assignments. Like these are things that you could use to quickly get your scoring back in sync. If for some reason you're using some of the scoring system or something and you just lost your bib assignments, some of these things are there on the platform. It's a quick way to get, again, registration ID, bib kind of mappings. Okay. I did, support wanted me to mention it. Again, super final resort. When an event's going on, just know that we're creating snapshots. If you're having an overall issue where you seem like you've lost all your bib assignments and it just happened, and somehow or another something in your process cleared out all the bib assignments, and yet you knew that they were all there before during all the pickup and all the dynamic bib assignments and everything, but something else came in, you were doing some other technology or something, and it just wiped out and updated all your participants. We do have the capability to help you through that scenario. So contact support. they use these snapshots and they can kind of recover you back to the last snapshot, kind of like final resort type things. So definitely something you would want to do working with support about. And over the years, I have to say, and I'm going to get into this with Qt Edits, been working with this CheckIn app for quite a few years now. We've gotten a lot better, but there are always these cases where some new variable comes along that just wasn't accounted for, and it could cause registrations to be updated. And again, if we're all pointing to this platform as our source of truth, and some other system comes in, these things can happen. And even with the CheckIn app, I think over the years we might have had some scenarios like that. So it's important to kind of know that these tools are out there to kind of help get through that and get back to what those bib assignments were, especially if you're using dynamic bib assignment. So what's this whole thing about Qt Edits? What's going on? And again, full disclosure on this one. As Avery said, we just keep fighting these like holes. I call them holes. Like, okay, we found this one condition that RunSignup is going to say that if I send this, they're going to fail the update. And so, we work this constantly, and we continue to find like little scenarios and stuff. It is possible that there's a certain use case or a certain flow that if you do this on the platform and you're doing this in the app, that all of a sudden now we can get out of sync and things just stop that day. So we've done some things to improve this, even in our recent edits. Just like you can hold devices, like after a certain number of failed edits, like everything is queued on their device. One, because they may have no network connection, or because something's like their configuration is wrong and all their assignments are just failing. So it might not have anything to do with internet. I just want to make this really clear. It could just be that something is wrong in the configuration. Avery talked about how important it is to understand that force refresh button. That force refresh button is really there for a few kind of like common things that might happen. Like you may have added new group types and you're doing a relay event, and all of a sudden somebody has like totally changed like kind of how the configuration works for your relay types. And now the app isn't like handling that very well. He talked about another scenario where you may have changed your custom question metadata, and yet you were set up to do some edits and you wanted to be able to do that. Then all of a sudden we're sending an edit up and we're failing. And so what we've done is in the latest release, check it out, it's under your configuration settings. You can set a number that says per device, if you get more than 5 failed edits, stop that device. So hopefully they'll come and find somebody and you can start looking at it. And maybe it's just a matter of force refresh and exporting those things. So again, you have the capability of getting the data. No data is lost. You can export that. You can actually see the bib assignments to the registration ID. So you can get it off the device. You can just go to the back end or go into your scoring system and fix that assignment and still not lose that bib assignment because it was stored on that device. What happened was RunSignup was rejecting our update, and so it got stuck on the device. And so a really important thing to know and play around with is like if there's things getting stuck, make it stop the user on that device, get them, export them off, and then fix it, force refresh, and get them back in the right configuration, get things flowing again. So that's a new thing you might want to check out. And again, this also applies if you have poor networking. So it's not necessarily about that device. We see a lot of scenarios out there where you're in a building with a lot of concrete and underneath a stadium, and you're really relying on this facility to provide you internet, but the internet is really bad. And so you try to start setting up maybe hotspots, and hotspots aren't working. So you just, as timers, you're constantly tested when it comes to networking and figuring your way through these scenarios. So again, this is another way you can kind of know that things are not working really well on this device. Maybe the device thinks it has a connection, but the Wi-Fi thing that was set up for it to work with, or the hotspot, isn't working at all, and you got to get that reset and figure that out. And so again, you can kind of help yourself by setting these settings up so that you know that this is happening, and you're not just all of a sudden in the middle of a race and finding out that there was 3 volunteer stations that had all your edits on it, and they were all sitting there, and I had no data, and I'm getting all these, unknown participants. So again, definitely something to play around with. Make sure that you understand about queued edits. And again, another scenario on this, and it's coming out in our next release, we found, again, it's volunteers. So now the other variable, you have lots of variables here, right? You have technology, you have networking, and then you have this one use case that didn't support the edit. The other variable in all this is users, right? We're relying on volunteer staff that may or may not be technical savvy. So you've got different people that show up to help you. So we were at a recent event, and like some of the volunteers were just like getting to the confirmation screen and just not hitting save. They were just like, okay, back or exiting. And so those saves weren't getting persisted and queued. And so in our next release, we're going to resolve that. We're going to make sure that before we get to the print screen and confirmation that, we've got that bib assignment, and we're not going to lose that bib assignment for you. So again, these are all things that we learn as we go through these things and these experiences with you as timers. And just know that we're working to make sure that we close all those holes as much as we can. But things do go wrong, edits do get stuck, and you need to need a way to be able to recover from that. So let's talk about QR codes and barcodes. Okay, this is a really interesting conversation that we had today in the chat channel. It's been really loved all the questions. Again, email version 3, really you have to use it at this point. We've retired the other platform. Really play around with the templates, understand all the placeholders and how you can create all these different emails and things that have QR codes in it and all make your process easier. But the main message out of all this that we're saying here today is use QR codes. And it's about what I'm about to talk about. It's just the technology has moved, and we are using these camera systems that are based on the latest version of Apple and the latest version of Android. And then all of a sudden we run into this thing where Android and Google says, you know what, we're not going to work that way anymore. And all of a sudden this technology package that we're using that was mapped to a certain library of Google stops working so well. And so what used to work 4 or 5 years ago isn't working so great. And so we really are telling our timers, our certified timers, to really move to QR codes today. Get away from the old school barcodes and start playing around and changing your processes so that you are sending those emails. People are coming, having a dedicated email said, here's your registration packet pickup email, and it's got the barcode right at the top. So they just come in, they scan their barcode, and then you scan the barcode of the bib, and it's just like 1, 2, 3, and you're processing, 10 people in a minute through stations and so forth. And because what we've found is that there are some issues, and I'm just throwing up the charts and things that we've done. Depending upon if you're on Android or iOS, I know this is kind of small, but in there, certain barcodes aren't supported by the packages that we're using, and and then you see like code 39 has an asterisk next to it up there, and you're like, well, what's that mean? So we went and did our own testing and started looking at this, and yeah, we're definitely finding that like if the bib was 11523, all of a sudden the scan was saying 1152, and it's like taking part of the number, or we're missing all the numbers. And so, it's very difficult for us to work around some of these things because, we're really relying on the operating system and also the package, what we call the camera package that we're using that works with that operating system. So, QR codes are your friend. Work with them, change over your processes, and you're going to find that a lot of these issues that you've been having where like, this particular phone was scanning the thing wrong or whatever, like a lot of those issues will go away, and you'll find that you aren't getting incorrect bib assignments as much as you had before. But I've provided some of these sheets in here. You might want to look at your barcode technology, see what you're using. That might be part of the reason why you've been having some incorrect reads and so forth. Based on what you're doing. Another discussion, again, I think in the chat channel I saw a lot of was around, hey, what's the best tools to use to create these barcodes so they have images and laid in them and stuff that I'm doing with my printers and stuff like that. And, there's just a lot of things out there. It's not really anything that we can help you or recommend. We hear stories from different timers, like they love this tool and others love this tool. I would really say at this point, a timer community is truly a community. You have your network of other timers that you work with, and just socialize that with them and see what other people are using. And a lot of times the other timers can really help you, look at new things that might make it a little bit nicer and look better in terms of what you're printing. So this came up a lot today. Let's talk about bibs and duplicate bibs and settings. And there's 3 settings you really need to think about. And one of them, 2 of them are at the event level, and one of them is across all events. And so you just need to understand, again, when we talk about presets, presets control things at an event level. Configurations control things across events. So just keep remembering preset, display, event, configuration, actions across events. Okay. So we added, I think about a year ago, the ability, if you have an event where you really want to make sure that volunteer can assign a bib 1 on both the marathon and the half marathon, even though you've got something set up differently, you can set that up in the app and set that in the cloud configuration so that you know that it happens and so that someone's messed up. So maybe you're not using scanning technology, you're typing in the numbers or something like that. And so you can kind of prevent that and have that error, and that volunteer will have to come ask somebody about what's going on. Settings not on by default. You definitely want to understand that if you turn that on, this is not a RunSignup thing, the platform thing. This is the R side. We're looking at all the information we have, and we're preventing it from being queued in the app. And so that's, kind of across all the events, that same bib number hasn't been used, and I'm going to just keep that from happening. Now, again, you guys understand there's a 30-second cycle here, right? Every 30 seconds, we're pushing and sharing information. So, and the other part of the 30-second cycle is there's got to be an internet connection. So again, if you're having really spotty internet and it's taking 5 minutes to get data off of a device, there's always a window of opportunity where maybe the same bib could have been assigned. But again, we're really narrowing it down. We're talking 30 seconds. Hopefully, we catch things. And again, you have good network, then the window of opportunity is very small. The other thing here is, again, you can prevent them only in one event. So that would just set to the preset level. So you may want to only do that for like the triathlon relay event or something like that, and not the other events. Actually, I'll reverse that. You want to prevent the duplicate bibs in the normal triathlon, but in the triathlon relay, I wouldn't want to have that setting on, because I know the way I'm doing my scoring, I've got everybody with the same bib number because that's the way I do my relays. Then you would want to not have that setting on for the triathlon relay event. So again, the event level settings are there, and that's really where you want to control, preventing duplicate bibs just within that particular registration event. And then the other setting, I don't think I have it on the screen, is what we'll talk about in a second. The validate bibs one, this one here, this is important. This is truly looking now at the platform side and making sure you understand that we're going to read whatever number range validations that someone may have set up. Like for this event, these are the number ranges that I allow. We're going to read that configuration down from the platform, and we're going to apply those same rules in the app. So definitely want to play around with that if you're using range validation. And if you turn this on, we're going to go look at RunSignup. So this kind of surprises people sometimes because they didn't realize race directors were doing something or somebody else is doing something up there. They had this setting on and they're not really wanting that range kind of control. They're just like, look, I'm assigning out bibs. I can deal with it in my scoring software in my own way. Definitely something you might want to think about. If that setting's on, that setting means that we're looking at RunSignup. We're looking at what's been set up for that event, for those ranges, and we're going to try to apply the same validation before we let you check them in. Okay. And then the final one is not shown on here. That's really that whole optional required. And I think Avery talked about it earlier. This is probably one where you would probably not have it on for like certain types of like relay events and things like that. And then others you might have it on. Just again, controlling that based on event is probably an important thing to understand. Before I go on, let me hold here for a second. I've covered a lot of information. Avery, anything you got to chat?
Yeah, James, I think we've running out of time. So it's 2:17 now. So.
But just real quick, because we would go to 2:30, we're close here. I'm almost done. Avery, was there anything else that needs to be socialized?
I don't think so. Just had one question come in about, is there a way to be notified if duplicate bibs have happened? No, there's only, basically you can say I want to prevent it, and if you have those settings on and someone tries to cause a duplicate, it will stop them from doing it. but there's no way to like go back in time and get a list of duplicate bibs as far as I'm aware. Maybe David, you guys know in the RunSignup backend if there's a
There's always the old-fashioned way of downloading all your bib assignments, sorting them by bib number, and then checking for duplicates in Excel. I do that before just about every notable race I time.
Yeah, and you can do that in that activity log too. You can see that because again, that's in our bib download, it'll show, you can sort by bib and you'll see those duplicates. I did it just the other day. Okay, so again, what controls, this is something that people are like not totally sure about. I want to make sure this is clear. David talked about kiosk and kiosk view, and Avery talked about check-in. So this is kind of two very different kind of modes. But you know, the question that come up at the time are what controls the display of what fields, whether I'm doing custom questions, giveaway fields and stuff, on a kiosk view and a check-in step view. It's the same thing, it's that preset. So just understand that you may have to have different presets for a kiosk versus a check-in, because I want a very different control of display in the kiosk versus check-in. So just make sure you understand preset controls display, as we've said many times here today, and understanding that we're looking at those, whether or not we're in kiosk or check-in. And then again, how quickly does things happen? We're on a 30-second sync cycle.
How you doing?
And this is a great video that's out there. And then really quickly, the printer. I think this is the timer's bane, right? You guys all deal with printing, and you hope the printing will someday go away. And then all of a sudden we come back and say, hey, let's do printing again, because we want to put labels on a bib so that it makes your giveaway thing work better or whatever. So I really highly recommend you go to the YouTube channel, look for these words, the print function, RaceDay, check-in. We spent a whole section on just troubleshooting and understanding networking and how to deal with networking in these printers. A whole bunch of really good, valuable information, how to look at the different settings and stuff. So if you're thinking about getting into the world of label printing, check this video out. It's going to give you a lot of information about networking with these printers. And a question came up today about Chromebooks. For those, when I first did the label printing stuff, it was definitely working with Chromebook. I didn't get a chance to verify that totally with development, but yeah, if you're on Chromebooks and you've got Google App Store and you're able to install the check-in, yeah, it was like kind of like you had to do a USB kind of connection between the Chromebook and the printer. But yeah, we had it working in the past, but we definitely something you want to test and try out. Again, we'll be looking at that also. So if you're with that person,
James, yeah, it's only USB for check-in for Chromebook. Yeah. I'm sorry. Wireless is absolutely not supported for Chromebook.
Yeah, definitely. And so just send an email to Avery, that person, and he'll respond back after we do our final checkout on that. But yeah, USB connection. Yeah. Finally, David, support team, it's more than him, it's Kevin, it's Dave, Drew, there's all those people out there. We really want to tell you, please use the support, get support within the app. Why do we want you to use that get support button right from the menu? The reason why is within that thing, it gives us all the context that we can quickly answer your questions. It gives us everything we need, so we're not fumbling around trying to find races and all this stuff. It will get us like that, you know, you're in the middle of your pre-race trying to get through it, it'll get us that quicker to be able to help you.
To clarify, make sure you have your race loaded in. You can send a get help ticket in from the find a race on the front page. That doesn't tell us anything. So make sure you've loaded in your race and then send the ticket in.
Yep, from this menu. Good. Okay, over to Shelley. Thank you again for everyone's attention today. Very appreciated.
Great. Let me make me presenter. Okay, so I just have a couple things to cover really quickly as a close. And, you know, we had hoped to finish by 2, but there were some really good questions that came up that we wanted to cover and so forth. So we did go over a little bit, but I'm hoping everybody found that very helpful. Let me see. So before I go on, I want to make sure I put this into the entire audience because people were asking about the quiz. So I have now put it in the chat area of the go-to control panel. Don't worry if you're not sure how to access that. We are going to email you a link to the quiz, but I'm putting it there just so that in case anybody wants to get on it right away, because the email, we have to wait for the recording of this session to process before we send the email, but you'll get it within 24 hours. So, but first, I want to just, James talked about getting help in the app, but there are, we do like to kind of capture what are the ways that you can get help on the site and all the other tools. We have so much help all over, RunSignup site in the help area, how-to section. On your dashboard, I really love just typing in on the search field, and a lot of people don't realize it's up on the upper left corner of your race dashboard. Whatever you're looking for, you can find how to, get to that function very quickly. We have how-to pieces. We have videos on our YouTube channel. And again, your support contacts are info at RunSignup. They're open 7 days a week. And RaceDay Scoring has its own email and phone number. So, but again, as James mentioned, if you're working specifically with a specific event, it's much easier for our support people to respond to you if you go within the app, within that race. And then further training, we have all sorts of CheckIn app training videos that we have on our YouTube channel. And also, if you look on our website or our past webinars, you can look at that as well. And then look for our newsletters. We have our RunSignup newsletter, our timer newsletter, and our TicketSignup newsletter. And then on our blog, this is where we provide all our software updates and any type of best practices and announcements. So that's really kind of the key to what's going on with RunSignup. Each newsletter each month kind of captures what happened from the last month. And especially the timer newsletter. So if you're not getting the timer newsletter, let me know. And make sure that you've, enabled it so that you are getting newsletters from RunSignup. But this is the timer newsletter is actually the most opened out of all of our newsletters, the percentage wise. So which is great. So we really do try to cater it and keep the messaging and all the content specific to timers and what they would be most interested in. It talks about our products, product training, and things like that. So we also announced this month that last month, that we're really interested in hosting timers and letting them take the lead on our Timer Tip Tuesdays. So it could be talking about, new technology that you've implemented, or a specific race event, or what have you. So if you have you have a scenario you want to talk through, or it could be about your business that you want to share, kind of what you think would be helpful for others to know. You can then take that recording and market it. So it's a win-win for everybody, and we also promote you. So our first guest timer, who I saw is on this session, is Jim Lang. Hi, Jim. So he is going to be covering an event that's a 12-hour lap event. And he'll be covering that on April 30th and using RaceDay Scoring. So he's covering on April 30th at 12 o'clock. So please join us for that. And thank you, Jim. So,
and for the record, he's a very knowledgeable toddler. He's got lots of experience.
What'd you say?
He is a very knowledgeable toddler.
Yes.
So he's worth listening.
Yes, he's very, it's a very cute photo. Okay, so the one thing I want to make sure everybody is aware of is that RunSignup is hosting its first RunSignup University event in the summer. So we're not putting on a symposium, but this is different. This is a more hands-on training. And really, this is more for the experienced timers that are familiar with our technology. In fact, we're going to go through anyone that's registered and make sure that they've gone through some of our certification programs. So we're calling this our Timers Masters program. So if you're new to RunSignup or you're a newer timer, you probably would get frustrated by the program. We have other things that we can certainly help you onboard things. And also we have our road show that we're doing. And we, like this last quarter, we did a timer tour that we met with people. So this is more kind of talking advanced settings. But we definitely hope that many of you are able to join us there. And it is June 11th through the 12th. So definitely make sure to register. Okay, so next steps, the quiz. So we're asking, you have 2 weeks to take the quiz. Once you complete it, we will review it and make sure that, you got the majority of the questions right. And then we will send you a confirmation email with your badge. So you'll have a new badge and that you can use in your marketing and communications. A lot of the timers will have these on their websites and all their signatures on their emails and so forth. And then it will automatically appear in your listing in RunSignup's Find a Timer section. So please make sure you have a timer account, because if you don't have a timer account, we don't have a way to assign your badges and your certification status. So first and foremost, make sure you have a timer account. If you're not sure how to do that, let us know, but you can also search for that on our website and you'll find the how-to. And then you'll have your business will be showcased on RunSignup. And we are actually changing the default showing of timers, where all of those that have all 4 certifications will appear first. So if you haven't completed your certifications, then I would definitely encourage you to do so. They're all recorded right now and you can do them on your own and take the quizzes. The only one that needs a little bit of guidance you need to get with us first on is RaceJoy. But everything else is on our website that you can watch the videos on your own and do the quiz. So that is that. Any final questions, or I think we're good?
We're good, Shelly. Thanks so much.
Okay, great. I didn't realize my hair was a mess. Well, I wanted to thank everybody, and I don't know, Avery and David, if you want to show your, okay, great. Thank you everybody for sticking it out with us today, and all your great questions. We do appreciate you spending your time and your day with us and taking the time to really know the product. Obviously there's a lot of work and support behind all the products that we have, and but we appreciate you taking your time and really understanding the product. So very much.
If you have any additional questions we didn't cover, feel free to send an email to info@runsignup.com, and myself or one of the other RaceDay staff will get back to you as soon as we can.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.